So this YouTuber is about to unalive his gay lover. Let me explain. Now his name is Daniel. He's 29, he's from Spain, and he's got a small cooking channel on YouTube.
Muy buenas disfrutones, ¿cómo estáis? Vamos a hacer unas smash burgers de campeonato.
Meanwhile, all the way over in Colombia, there's this other guy, Edwin. Edwin's 44 and he's a successful plastic surgeon. He has multiple medical practices in different countries and bro is making really good money. So one day, Edwin and Daniel, they discover each other on Instagram. And one of them slides into the other's DMs, and Edwin is much older than Daniel, but who cares? He thinks Daniel is fine. And I guess Daniel feels the same way about him, because pretty soon, these two guys are chatting regularly. And they're flirting, and they're allegedly sending adult photos to one another. And most importantly, they're talking about meeting up in person. So they keep this relationship up for a while, and eventually they do meet up. Edwin flies to Madrid to have dinner with Daniel, and they have a good time. A month later, they meet up in La Granja. A few months after that, they meet up and party with a bunch of friends in Ibiza. And allegedly, they're smashing and they're hooking up during all this. And as they travel around and meet up in cool places and hang out and smash, I guess Edwin really starts liking Daniel. And he starts to imagine them being together as like boyfriend. And that is where things start to go wrong. Because apparently, at some point, Edwin confesses to Daniel, and he tells him how he really feels about him, that he's really into him, and that he's planning to move to Spain and open a couple of medical practices there so that they can be closer to one another. Now, unfortunately, Daniel likes Edwin too, but he's not on the same page. Like, he doesn't want to be his boyfriend. So he tries to break things off with him, and poor Edwin's like, "No, mi amor." And this becomes a point of contention for them for a while. And at some point, Edwin gets mad. And he doesn't want to lose Daniel. So he allegedly threatens him. Like, if you break up with me, I'll release those adult photos I have of you. And Daniel, he hears this and he's like, "Oh, mierda." Because here's the thing about Daniel. Daniel isn't some regular chef with a cooking channel on YouTube. Daniel is actually the son of a famous Spanish TV and film actor, Rodolfo Sancho. And his mom is a well-known actor too, Sylvia Bronchalo. Now, this is speculation on my part, but I assume that him having famous parents makes it really important to him to keep those adult photos of him from getting leaked. But whatever the reason, Daniel really doesn't want this information getting out, and he feels trapped. So he comes up with a plan to make sure those photos never go public. And one day, Daniel invites Edwin to meet up with him. Not in Spain, though, but all the way over in Thailand, on a little island, Kopagan. Because he says he wants to go to this famous full moon party, which is like a huge festival they have every month in Thailand on that island. And a lot of people go to it. And Edwin's like, "Full moon party? Sweet." So then, fast forward to the day of the party, and Daniel travels from Spain over to the island, and he gets there first before Edwin, and he checks into a bungalow. Then he goes to a store, and he picks up some supplies, plastic bags, rubber gloves, scrubbing pads, bleach, and a knife. And then later that day, Edwin arrives, and Daniel goes, he picks him up on a little scooter that he had rented. And they cruise around for a while, and they hang out, and they're gonna have dinner, and it seems like it's gonna be a fun night. Until later, Daniel and Edwin get back to their bungalow, and apparently Edwin wants to smash. But Daniel, he's not feeling it. He's like, "Nah, bro, I don't want to." But then, allegedly, Edwin gets a little pushy, and Daniel is still like, "Nah, bro." So they start to argue, and their argument gets heated, like really heated, and it gets bad. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, bam, Daniel pushes Edwin hard, and Edwin falls back, and then pow, he hits his head on the bathtub, and he falls unconscious. He is out. Now, at this point, Daniel could call 911 and get medical attention for Edwin, but that's not what he does. First, he pours water over his head for some reason. I guess he's hoping it'll wake him up. But, of course, Edwin doesn't wake up, and water isn't gonna help. And this is when shit gets a little dark. 'Cause Daniel, he then takes that knife he bought, and bam, bam, he stabs Edwin twice. Then, he uses it to cut Edwin's throat, and of course, this unalives him. Then Daniel takes that knife and he cuts Edwin into 14 pieces, and then he puts those pieces into those plastic bags that he had bought earlier. Then he uses the cleaning supplies he bought and he cleans the hell out of that crime scene. And after that, he takes those plastic bags with Edwin's parts in them and he drives around the island and he dumps them in a bunch of different places. In trash bins, in a landfill, in the jungle. So Edwin's body is now scattered all over the island. Daniel even goes and buys a kayak and paddles out into the ocean and he dumps some of Edwin's parts there. And when he's done with all this, Daniel doesn't sit around and mourn and grieve the friend he just lost. No. He allegedly heads over to the full moon party, and he parties all night with a couple of girls he met, and he has a great time. The next morning, beep, he gets a DM. And it's from Edwin's sister. I guess Edwin's sister knows that they were traveling together, and she hasn't heard from Edwin. And Edwin is the kind of guy who talks to his family like every day, so now that he's gone silent, she knows something's wrong. So she asks Daniel, "Where's Edwin?" And Daniel's like, I haven't heard from him since he left last night. And then, I guess so as not to seem suspicious, Daniel goes to the police and he files a missing person report like, "Hey, my friend suddenly went missing." Here's the thing though. By this point, a sanitation worker was at the local landfill and he was going about his day and he found some of the bags with Edwin's remains in them. And he had immediately reported it to police. So police now have these random body parts, and they know someone was murdered. They just don't know who. So then Daniel comes in, and he reports his friend missing, and he apparently has cuts and scratches on him, and all of this makes police very suspicious. So they question him, and they press him, and pretty quickly Daniel's like, "All right, I did it," and he confesses to unaliving Edwin and dismembering him. However, he claims it was self-defense. He claims that back in the bungalow, Edwin was trying to SA him and that he had to unalive him in order to defend himself. Regardless of whether that's true or not, bam, police arrest him. And Daniel cooperates and he takes the police to all the places around the island to show them where he had dumped Edwin's remains. And he also tells police that he was never actually romantically involved with Edwin. He claims that they were potential business partners, but that they're not lovers, they never smashed, and that he's not even gay. Sure, Daniel. However, when Thai police investigate all this and they look into Daniel's self-defense story, they end up finding surveillance footage of Daniel buying the murder knife and the cleaning supplies at the grocery store before Edwin even arrived on the island, suggesting that this whole crime was planned out beforehand. And then, of course, this story hits the news that the son of famous Spanish actors unalived his secret gay lover in Thailand, and the story blows up and the news is everywhere. And ultimately, Daniel is found guilty of unaliving Edwin, and he's sentenced to life in prison. And here's what he looks like in real life.